Sherman! We'll check all the differences between mid-tier and top tier, where to shoot, what to expect here and there, and how to transfer your skill set. And you will decide which battle rating is the best. I will not say which battle rating is better or worse. Mid and early top tier is the best. And here's why. Damage. During the mid game, the most common shell that you'll be using is armor-piercing high explosive shell, which deals insane damage. That is, unless you're playing Brits, France, or some specific tanks in Sweden, because usually those use solid shot or heats, which deal a lot less damage but have pretty good penetration. Armor-piercing high explosive shells are loved by everyone because they are very forgiving. Even poor shots like in this example still reward you with a frag purely because the shell itself deals insane damage, which is not going to happen in higher battle ratings. A bad shot is going to be a bad shot, and your enemy will either retreat and repair or just end up killing you in the first place. But it works both ways. You get a one-shot and more frequently in mid battle ratings and a little bit less frequently in top tier. This extra damage in mid game is also paired with shells being scattered all over the tanks, which also reduce survivability in mid game, when in higher battle ratings, shells are usually placed in places which are less likely to get hit. This way increasing survivability even further. Plus, there are way more new players in mid-game which have low-level crews where they don't have vitality level, so it can sometimes just one-shot dudes by hitting their fuel tank. While in top tier, fuel tanks are well known to be the best armor in the game. And while we're still talking about vitality, in mid-game, if enemy gonna catch some shrapnel to the sack, like, he ain't gonna be gunning it. But in high tier, that dude's gonna take it like a champ. He'll still be smiling, waiting for more. Like, yeah, vitality skill matters a lot, and guys in top tier have it leveled more often than not. With all those things adding up, you can tell that survivability in top tier is drastically increased. And the higher you go in battle rating, the more survivable the tanks become. And because beginners get shot more frequently than they shoot themselves, and experienced players shoot more frequently than they get shot themselves, it might sound like top tier is better for new players because of extra survivability, and mid game is better for experienced players for very reliable and forgiving damage. Yeah, but also no. Experienced players will 100% do much better in mid-game for the exact reason of great damage, and there's obviously a lot of extra free meat. But beginners will get smacked in high battle ratings, well, most of them at least. There's always outliers. And the main reason is speed and experience of players. Well, there's obviously a few more. At first, I thought that top tier players are just as bad as mid-game players, but once I got to play in mid-game battle ratings, man, like, the difference was very noticeable. Enemies in mid-game randomly give you free shots. They just, for no reason, dude looks away like this. Like, bro, what are you doing? They're much more aggressive. They're much more willing to fight it out with you, which is very fun. They miss their shots more frequently because they don't have rangefinder, and their mistakes are amplified because vehicles are slow. So if they miss their shot, they won't be able to roll back as fast. Where in top tier, you will notice that enemies are usually a lot more passive. They will value their life more, and they will not be keen to just giving you a free frag for no reason. They are experienced enough to not peek you because they know they're gonna get killed, but they're not experienced to know what to do and how to win a fight. So they're not skilled sweat lords, but if you peek them like a bot, they definitely gonna hit you. But Gladiator, if it's easier for experienced players to play in mid-game, doesn't that mean that they all will go there? Which in turn would make mid-game harder. There are quite a few good players in mid-game, but they are very rare compared to the average players. And usually because the game itself is slower in mid-game, good players tend to react slower as well. They're a little bit more laid back, they're listening to music, all that kind of stuff. And as much as I love to find skilled players in mid-battle ratings, I very rarely do. And believe me, brother, I know. I'm gonna be honest with you. If I need to drop an easy nuke or get lots of frags to show off my skill on the video, I go to mid-game. It is my desperate attempt to get love from strong, fine gentlemen like yourselves. I ain't gonna glaze around it. I'd love to say that mid-game is much more difficult than top tier or something like that, but I ain't a liar. I'm a filthy sinner, but at least I'm an honest one, alright? Bro, I can't even turn on music in top tier because I won't hear enemies. What is that? Zzz, zzz. I can't hear that shit. But in mid tiers, I hear that duck, 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 duck. Like that one, that thing I can hear just fine. I mean, yeah, you can find unbelievable bots in top tiers, especially during the sales, bro. You're gonna be printing nukes like this, but those noobs are much less common in endgame than in mid game. Purely because most of the beginners that buy top tier premium tanks, 90% of the time, they'll die so much that either they'll stop playing completely and quit the game entirely, or they'll go back to lower battle ratings, learn the game the proper way, and later come back once they get more experience. But why is it harder for beginners when tanks have more survivability? Tanks in top tier are much faster than in mid game, meaning that pushes and flanks happen much quicker. Meaning that you will have to look at the minimap much more frequently. Because, for example, you're holding a position, right? And teammates are fighting behind you. In mid-game, if your teammates die, as they always do, it will take much longer for your enemy to backstab you. Plus, there's a higher chance that you're going to hear them because just the engines are louder. So basically, you have extra time to reposition and get yourself ready. You have more leeway in terms of how frequently you look at the minimap because everything moves slower. In top tier, after your teammates get wiped, the enemy will come towards you much faster and with quieter engines. Multi-fights are much easier in mid-game for that exact reason. Okay, your reload speed is longer by 2-3 seconds compared to top tier, but enemies can't poly you as easily because it will take them 25 seconds to get to you instead of 7 or 8 in higher battle ratings. So your window of planning has much more leniency. Basically, you have more time to react, more time to plan out stuff, but if something unexpected happens, it's going to be much more difficult to correct it because your tank is slower just like everyone else's. Which kind of means that mid-game favors long-term tactical planning, while top tier favors quick and fast decision-making. But honestly, my favorite part in top tier is multi-fights, purely because you have extra utility. But we'll talk about it a little bit later. To deal damage, you gotta penetrate the dude first. In mid-game, it usually works like this. You either penetrate the dude and deal massive damage, or you don't. Armor is made to purely stop penetration, nothing more. In endgame, armor is not only made to stop penetration, it is also made to reduce damage as much as possible. Sometimes you might penetrate a dude successfully, but you will deal very little damage because you might have hit a very armored spot, which basically absorbed all the damage. So in mid-game, if you want to penetrate a dude, most of the time you'll be aiming for flat surfaces, right? Because shells in mid-game are pretty bad at penetrating angled armor. If someone is heavily armored, most of the time you're gonna go for commander cupolas, machine gun ports, and hatches if you see them. Because if you penetrate commander cupola, your shell is going to explode and pretty much immobilize the tank or destroy him to begin with. In high battle ratings, you're using APFSDS, which is fantastic at penetrating angled armor, but that thing doesn't blow up after it penetrates. So commander cupolas are a lot less valuable. They're still okay, but they're not going to guarantee you a one-shot. Flat parts of the tanks usually will have so much armor. It's going to be layered ceramics and all sorts of steels and shit. And I mean, it's going to be a shitload. So you're not going to go through it. Even if you do penetrate them, you will deal very little damage. Well, at least for most of the tanks. Some tanks you can definitely part their flattest part, but you know. So your best bet is to go for lower plates, driver hatches, and turret rings if you see them. And if enemy starts angling, track shots are fantastic, by the way, because APFSDS won't have any problem going to that angled track. And it usually ends up in a very reliable kill shot. So in mid-game, you want to angle all the time. In top tier, you do not want to angle. That's the worst thing you can do. And when in top tier, fuel tanks are the best armor. In mid-game, engines are. So when dudes say that mid-game is more realistic than top tier, and you see them driving with IS-2 or T-34's engine front, like, brother, I raise an eyebrow like this. In mid-battle ratings, perfect shot from the side is right over here in this position. Unless they have one crew member in the hull, then it's very similar to top tier, and because there's usually driver and radio man in the hull, you'll have to go for this shot right over here to maximize the chance of getting everyone in the turret and the hull. Because even if you destroy everyone in the turret, 2 crew members are enough for the tank to still be functional, and they're in the hull. But most of the time, people just shoot wherever and it works anyways, because armor-piercing high explosive is a fantastic shell, and plus there's ammo spread all around those tanks, so it doesn't really matter that much. It's like if you're maximizing it, if you're sweat lording, basically, then it's important. In top tier, there's no extra radio operator anymore, meaning there's only 1 crew member in the hull and 2 or 3 in the turret, which makes perfect shot be this. And the leeway itself is much smaller, as you can see. A bit more to the left or to the right, and shrapnel won't hit them. And in that case, enemy will still be alive. Also, in top tier, preferences of where to shoot have to change as well. Instead of thinking of where you want to land your explosion, which is your main source of damage at mid-battle ratings, you're thinking of where do you want to land your shrapnel. For example, you have a fresh full hit point Abrams looking straight at you. He's reloading, so you have all the time in the world. but you have to one-shot him because his boyfriend is coming over. If you shoot the turret ring, you guarantee penetrate him, but there's a very good chance that you're not going to kill him. So he's going to repair, and now it's 2v1, which is practically unwinnable. Basically, the longer you let your shrapnel travel, the more it spreads out. So basically, if someone's sitting right over here and you penetrate right over here, shrapnel won't have enough time to spread out enough to hit this guy right over here. But if you penetrate from a further distance, your shrapnel will have much more time to spread out and hit the dude. So your chance of hitting this guy increases drastically. So basically, if you shoot Abrams at this part right over here, you will pretty much guarantee destroy him. Or at least statistically, you will have better chances of doing so even while hitting the more armored part. But if you're standing higher or you have a taller tank, you can just penetrate this part instead. Going lower to that original spot will just be inefficient. Most likely you're just gonna hit the driver anyways and then you're dead. Because you want to maximize your chances of shrapnel reaching 3 enemy crew members.
Gentlemen, we are reaching, well, actually levels that are dangerous to the environment. We must put on our protective goggles on. Transformation complete.
What the fuck? Since in mid-game, explosive filler basically means how much damage the shell's going to do, as it is the thing that makes most of the damage in mid-game.
In top tier, shrapnel only depends on residual penetration.
Well, actually, some armor plates do generate extra spall, but even then, most of the damage still depends on residual penetration, not the mass of the projectile, not the speed of it, not the girth of APFSDS rod. If your shell lost all of the energy after penetrating the armor, even if it's very heavy and thick as fuck, it will not spall, or there's going to be a very tiny amount of spall. If your projectile has a lot of energy after penetrating the armor, even if it's tiny, it depends how you use it, right, gentlemen?
Then it will make a lot of spall. It will spread out the spall all over the place.
Well, actually, the amount of spall generated does matter on speed, mass, and many other things. But what people mean by saying that only residual penetration matters is that the combination of all these parameters together is what matters when it comes to shrapnel generation. So for example, if a shell is huge but it has very slow speed, it will be useless. You want all parameters to be well balanced to make a shell good. To be quite frank, not only residual penetration matters, the materials themselves matter a lot as well, their thickness, energy transfer between those materials, and so on and so forth. You can have a shell that has insane residual penetration. However, if it over-penetrates and has poor energy transfer, there will be very little spall. And you yourself know damn well about over-penetration when it almost nulls your shrapnel. There's a reason why people say no armor is best armor in some cases. This mechanic creates certain situations where sometimes it's actually worth hitting a thicker plate rather than a slimmer one. Smaller and lighter shells can sometimes deal more damage after the penetration purely because they shatter, which will increase the density of your shrapnel over the area, which is what you want basically. I'm generalizing, obviously, because there are so many different circumstances where either one shell or the other is better. In most cases, penetration equals more damage. But if you notice that some shell with less penetration actually deals a little bit more damage, you might not be tripping it, and it actually might be the case. Basically, pair all that shit that I mumbled with all the moving parts and extra crew hit points, which can survive shrapnel going straight through their brain, and you have a game mode that can get very annoying very quickly. But then we go like, well, okay, weak spots and kill shots are much smaller, but hitting them should be a much more easier because of high velocity of the projectiles, good optics, all that kind of stuff. Everybody knows that's not the case. Everything moves faster in top tier, including those weak spots. They're moving much quicker. There are so many moving parts that it becomes frustrating.
Is it skill issue? Not necessarily.
The game itself was not designed for top tier. You see, when game developers introduced ground battles to this game, all the tanks were very slow. T-54s were basically fighting against mouses in top tier. And because all tanks were so slow, those tick rates, which is how frequently the server updates information, were set to very low. Some say it's like 10-12 hertz in WarThunder.
Even Minecraft has 20, by the way.
Oh, listen, it saves a lot of money with acceptable impact on the gameplay.
9! In top tier, everything is moving very quickly, and those pathetic tick rates are not enough anymore. And huge maps, right? They're not supported by the game at all. And we keep getting them constantly.
Where did I shoot this flying Terminator? Like, do I shoot the client side, the thing that's flying, or do I have to guess the actual position of that thing server side?
This rubber banding freaking dude, like, where'd I shoot this guy?
Long distance fights are possible against noobs that are stationary for more than 5 seconds, bro. Because I think their refresh rates decrease as the distance increases. That's why there's no flying tanks up close, but everybody further is a freaking astronaut. Do you know what else decreases as distance increases? Penetration, which means damage. So long range fights that could be fine are not. So basically hitting those guaranteed one-shot spots are just practically impossible because the game was not made for top tier. So basically you have very interesting game mode, which has huge potential,
which is the main selling point of the game, which requires a lot of accuracy with quickly moving parts at very long distances, which has huge potential, but it has so many issues.
It just ruins the whole gameplay. So veterans ask to increase the tick rate and constantly ask to improve server stability so that they could enjoy the top tier more. I mean, we're not asking for 128 tick rates or 64 like Counter-Strike. Well, obviously it's a lot of work to make it better, so players ask for more shrapnel in top tier, so that damage would be more forgiving for the shooter because there are so many moving parts and server tick rates and desynchronization, all that kind of stuff. At least that extra damage will reduce the server side punishment of a good shot. So we got turret baskets and electronics, which, I mean, it does help a little bit, but it doesn't solve the root problem most of the time. And that's why mid-game and early top tier are the best battle ratings, because those issues are not as noticeable. That's why people who really want to play top tier and enjoy it, they usually stay at 8.3 to 10.3 battle rating. Because tanks are a bit slower, but still fast enough. Damage is a little bit more reliable in those battle ratings, mostly because tank protection is much worse. There's still utility like smoke, ESS, thermals, laser rangefinders, and so on and so forth. And CAS has very serious anti-air vehicles to deal with. So basically, CAS is not as painful as in any other battle ratings. And even the spots that you constantly play in mid battle ratings, they stay the same. They don't change at all in higher battle ratings, for the exception of suicide runs. They get punished much more heavily
unless you're playing against a complete lemming squad.
Then you can run through it.
If you want to know which type of mistakes people usually do when they transition to new battle rating, check out this video right over here. Thank you for watching, gentlemen. Stay awesome.